With me is Richard Kumadoe, who is a fraud and security analyst. And I also have Ibrahim-Tanko Amidu, who is the executive director of Star Ghana Foundation. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for joining us. And one particular issue that has been in the news for about 3 days now running is that of the Sogakope unrest. And I'll start with Mr. Kumadoe briefly, but before I do so, I'd like to read some of the stories that we have on our website. Sogakope residents storm police station over assemblyman's murder. Some residents in Sogakope yesterday stormed the police station in the town as they continue protest to express their displeasure over the murder of the Sogakope South Assemblyman Marcus Mauto Ajali. Now, police officers had to fire warning shots to disperse the protesters who had besieged the police station. The police opened fire after protesters started pelting stones at the officers. Some residents from Sokwe, a neighboring town, also made their way to Sogakope to join the protest. And there's a quote here that says, "He's our brother. We also feel for him. That is why we came," a resident of Sokwe said to Citi News. Now, the protesters had earlier on Monday blocked the Aflao Accra Road at the end of the lower Volta Bridge at Sogakope after a similar action on Sunday. Now, I don't know if you watched the videos on our...
Yeah, I watched some of them.
Some of them. And I'll take your thoughts on that briefly. But can we say that there's a total breakdown in our security? There's a lapse. And I don't know if you also saw the way the police officers were firing into the crowd. I mean, you were supposed to give warning shots, but these looked like targeted at the protesters. And we understand that 3 people have already been injured as a result of the escalations yesterday.
Yeah, I think the whole policing has been, the modern day policing has eluded us as a nation. And the kind of policing we are seeing now is a little bit awkward, and it will not stand the test of time.
How, when you say awkward?
They are way behind, because we are talking about crowd control, and there are modern ways of controlling crowd. We are tired of hearing these stories that says that protesters were throwing stones.
They were.
So they returned with live bullets. No, come on. There are many ways of dealing with protesters, especially the levels at which we have seen, without necessarily killing more people. And then you look at the root causes. It has been the negligence of the police, or the inability of the police to respond properly to distress calls that led to the demonstration. And we should be finding ways of curtailing many more of such, because there have been several killings in this country, and the police are not able to find the perpetrators. And definitely,
it will anger the
that's
residents.
And people are going to agitate, and people are asking for justice. So if we go killing more people and nobody is finding out the killers of these particular people, then it's going to be a problem.
Okay. So now, I was also asking about the manner in which they were shooting at them. Was that the only situation? Do you think they should have retreated, allowed that? Because the residents were also being careless in a way. They were actually being lawless by doing what they did. I mean, yes, a human life has been lost, but do you go ahead blocking a major road? People were stuck in traffic for over 3 hours.
Yeah, the residents were reacting. In that particular day, they were reacting to something they feel like grieve about. We need to engage them.
Which the police did on Sunday.
No, we need to engage them. To the extent that they came to the street means that the engagement has broken down. There were no solutions to why we went there in the first place. And what we do in this country, or what we do in this part of the world, is that we are more of reacting to issues instead of responding. And once you keep on reacting, you are going to see what you saw. Because action and reaction are going to be equal, but opposite. And people are looking at it across the country, that many instances where police were called and they were never at the place, or they came too late. That again, there has not been any transfer of skills from one person to other. There are people in the Ghana Police Service, I think they could have handled these situations better than what we are seeing. Look at the crowd numbers and the violence of the crowds. They do not, at that point, put any police officer's life in danger. To the extent that you fire live bullets into the crowd, killing more people or injuring them. Yeah. You trigger more anger, and that is what we are seeing.
Okay, so, Mr. Tanko, so yes. The situation is not peculiar to Sogakope. Yes. When you look at the level of anger within the people, I mean, it's becoming a very common phenomenon across the country. Now, police react when these issues come out. They speak to family members, commiserate with them, put bounty and all that. What can we do as a country, as a nation, to go beyond these things and ensure that the citizenry do not take the law into their own hands like we saw yesterday?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I think I'll start by expressing my condolences to the family of the assemblyman who lost his life, and also to those who are injured. What's happening in Sogakope, as you rightly mentioned, I mean, it's not peculiar to Sogakope. We've seen this happen across the country, and that should point to a fact that the issues are systemic. They are not specific to a location. And so we need to take a step back and look at this whole concept of policing. When we talk of policing, what do we mean? First, we're looking at the actions of the police themselves, as my brother has just said. How do they respond to a situation? How proactive are they? How have they been communicating? Because in the absence of information, rumors and etc. would fill the gap. So this should tell the police that the ways in which they engage with and communicate, with the citizenry needs a second look. But what are our rules also as citizens in helping with policing? Because police cannot solve a crime without the active assistance of the citizens. Are we willing to provide those? Because sometimes when we see this thing has dragged, the police haven't done anything. To what extent have we also volunteered information? Have we actively sought to help? Have we ensured that we don't tamper with the crime scene? Because something happens and everybody rushes there. In the process of rushing, wanting to see, wanting to help, etc., you tamper with the crime scene, and it affects, the police's ability to solve the problem. I know of instances where the police have been called and they've been very prompt. I also know of instances where they've been called and they haven't been prompt. And so I think it's for the police administration to look at what are the critical issues. Is it lack of transport? Is it the communication gadgets that the ops room receives a call and they are not able to pass it on to the patrol team, etc.? But I think that, yes, the loss of the assemblyman's life should be condemned. All efforts should be made to get the perpetrators. But we should also realize that you don't solve the crime by blocking a major road. You don't solve the crime by attacking the police station. And that is where community leaders also need to stand up. Being a leader goes beyond just say, okay, the people want to do this, so let's go and do that.
The people were just not listening to their leaders.
Yes.
It shows you the level of anger. That
so,
had been
which means that this thing is not just because of the assemblyman's death.
It's
something that has been built exactly
of murder, unresolved murders.
And that is where I talked about the engagement between the police and the community. Because even if the investigations are in progress, even if it's over a year, how have you been feeding back to them? Even if it's not to everybody, because you don't want to compromise on the information, your sources, and etc. But at least some community leaders need to know that this is the stage where the investigations have reached. But most of the time, there's a crime, the police are investigating, nobody hears anything, it goes dead silent. There might be things happening behind the scenes, but we don't know. And when we don't know, we presume. Yes. And when we presume, then we act on things like that. So I think the police needs to really work on their engagement and communication with citizens. But I think citizens, we also need to find ways of channeling these grievances to ensure that we don't, at the end of the day, because other people could have, more people could have lost their lives when these were attacked. My father was a policeman very long ago, and I remember there was an incident where, you had the similar riots. And one of the main preoccupations of the police at that time was really also to protect their families, because they had wives, their children, etc. What are the operational orders, or whatever they call it, for the police that in such a situation, how do you evacuate maybe the families of the police? That might also make them to react in ways that escalate the situation.
Okay. Do you share in the opinion that all the police officers stationed in Sogakope right now have to be transferred or actually relocated for their own safety?
Well, not just for their own safety, but I think also in terms of building or rebuilding the trust, the relationship between the police and the community. Even if there are some officers that are doing very well, but once it has gotten to that stage, I think part of the process of this de-escalation is really to give and take. They want them moved, do that, bring in other people, but make sure that the systemic issues are addressed. Else, at the end of the day, another incident comes, and then the new ones that you brought have to be moved away. If they don't have transport, if they don't have communication gadgets, if they, whatever, those systemic issues have to be looked at.
All right. So let me ask the analyst, do you think that we should transfer all these officers stationed there? And the DCE also mentioned to us on Sunday that there were about 15 officers who were stationed there who were transferred, and they replaced with only 8. So there's a gap or a shortfall. That is why these criminals may have been emboldened to do what they are doing.
Recently, you heard one of our big uncles, the chief in Kumasi, complaining when the nurse was murdered. And he was saying that in cases such as these, the police should be holding press conference to be speaking to the people. Now, when you create a cohesiveness issue within the communities in which the police operate, it becomes very difficult operating in the first place. The taxpayer pay the police, and when the taxpayer need the police most, the police is nowhere to be found. At what point do we say the police have effectively discharged? Those are the questions of performance issues they need to look at. And to that extent, even if you transfer them, what has happened and the high-headedness of the police and the military, it has created a problem for them. Definitely, they will have to leave the place for their safety. But I wonder how they're going to bring people in there now that there has been very antagonistic towards the police and the way the police carry themselves over the years. They will have to find a ways of softening their guns. Otherwise,
they are calling for military to be stationed instead of police officers.
Yeah, because people believe the military are more disciplined. But in recent cases, you remember the Galamsey, many years ago, the year 2000, I wrote an article by saying that once you are asking the military to go and night patrol with the police, we are corrupting the military. And you saw the issues of indiscipline that has entered into the military. We are destroying everything in this country. Everything that got to do with standardization is being destroyed. It needs to come back to hunters. So I'm not surprised we are seeing the level of indiscipline in society today.
Okay, now let's talk about the police and their equipment and resourcing of the police officers. Now, when you listen to residents, complaining is, you call them, they say they do not have a gun. Or you call them, they say they do not have any bullets. Meanwhile, these armed robbers have bullets. And so when they go and face them, they can't. When they go and meet them, they cannot face the robbers. These are allegations of the residents. It has to do with resourcing of the police. And it comes up time and time again. Now, we know that in recent times, even in the State of the Nation address, the president mentioned a few things that he's doing to actually boost and help resource the police, not only the police, the military, the fire service. But it appears we do not actually feel the impact of these resources that are being distributed.
See, you have a security structure problem in this country. The structure we are running is creating a problem. So in recent times, you even have 2 ministers for Ministry of Interior alone, and you have National Security Minister with a deputy. That is the problem. So at what point do we say our police has been resourced enough. Ameswale happened in Accra.
Yeah.
The Gapua woman happened in Accra. Takrady, then Kumasi, then you are talking about Sogakope. No, so are we saying that then they should just fold up and go home and sleep then? Because then who else is supposed to do the work? And at what point? We are not speaking the truth. I think the issue is that recruitment has been a problem for the police. The training regimes have been poorly managed, and politics have taken charge. So once you have politicians hijacking the police service and they are not following the due process over a long time to equip people, transfer skills and manage human resource and welfare, we expect them to perform magic. I heard the president, I was at Parliament House when he said that the police need to work so hard to redeem their image and integrity. How is it done? It's hard work, and the processes must take place. We don't hijack the police service. When the police, ask yourself, when was the last time the police employed people based on the need to recruit? Is it not the same politicians who fly the place with people who have no business being police? Then we also hear another election year that the police have been giving 700 cars. Is that the type of cars they need? Can the police sit back as managers? He ran a very serious business that we all do. I've been a consultant for all these years. I've served within the Secret Service. I've worked within the BNI over so many years before I came into private service. Don't we know how management is done? Security is a management issue, and it's a management tool. Once we run away from it and play politics with it, it will come back to hunt us, and that is the price we are paying. Now, when society or the communities don't trust the police, there's going to be open confrontation. And so therefore, the police people coming out to say, don't touch our man, and when you touch our men, we'll come after you. We should be ready that communities are also going to arm themselves once they don't have trust in the police, and we are creating so many mystery deaths without conclusive investigations in this country. That is the trigger we have, and that is what we should be worried about.
Okay.
Can I quickly add that I share the views that he has indicated, but as we build up to the elections, as these tensions continue to build up, it behooves on all of us, particularly the media, to also see what role we can play in de-escalating these kinds of situations. Because there are sometimes the reportage or the ways in which the reportage is framed might actually inflame some of these tensions. And so I think it behooves on all of us to say it is in nobody's interest to have these tensions get to that point where you have this throwing of stones and etc. And that we can't solve this problem with knee-jerk reactions. Transfer everybody, bring in security. For how long can you keep the military there? We need to step back and look at the systemic issues. One, the ways in which the police service is resourced, the ways in which the police service engages with communities. But we also look at the community level, how do we incentivize a willingness to cooperate with the police? That things happen and we are willing to cooperate with them to ensure that. Because a crime solving is a dual responsibility, the police and I think we should move away from the situation where at the least sign of trouble we bring in the military. Because then you are...
No, but at that particular point in time, that was the only way
yes,
to
but
resolve
that's
the
what I'm saying. We should
yesterday.
move away. That we get to the situation where within the police itself, we do have units that come in. Because each time I have a problem in my house, somebody is brought in to come and solve. What impression is being created that I'm incapable?
Yeah.
So then the loss of confidence in my ability leads to the fact that at the least sign of trouble, go and bring that man to come and solve it. And therefore, we need also to build that confidence of citizens in the police, but also the confidence of the police in their ability to, help solve these problems.
And so the police have different units that deal with different
issues.
And we have the striking force, we have the Buffalo. Yeah. Recently, you created a SWAT that has become a little bit of an issue. Yeah. And so therefore, the capacity of these guys, we will be able to manage some of these things. But we just run away. And Ms. Addo, you know why? These days, what has caught up the police is that the media is so vibrant. You have too many TV stations, so they cannot hide and say that we didn't do A, B, C, D. This time, they put the cameras on them. And so therefore, they must rise above the challenge and to be able to be effective.
That's right. All right, so we'll take a quick break here, and when we return, we'll talk briefly about the issues of small arms it's actually becoming a problem. And so we'll talk briefly about that and then delve into other issues. This is Breakfast Daily. And don't forget to get interactive with us, hashtag Breakfast Daily. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us. We were discussing the riots or escalations that happened yesterday at Sogakope following the killing of the assembly member of the area. And we've spoken a lot about the policing and all that. Now, I want us to deal with the issue of small arms. These people went into the home of someone who was probably not armed, 8 people. And when you look at the wound, you realize that the pistol that they used, I don't know how to describe it. Now we have issue of arms circulating in the system. Now there's a forecast that about 200,000 weapons illegally are produced in this country every year. And I'm sure you give me some education. When I go buy a pistol, it's registered and all that. You're able to trace the bullets and all that. When it comes to this issue of small arms with blacksmiths and everything, are you able to trace them? It's not registered. How are you able to do that? Is that what is causing a breakdown in these things? And I understand they're so cheap. You can get them.
Not even that one, but you even have AK-47 in the hands of civilians. Guns that only security agencies should be holding are now in the hands of civilians. So it has been a problem. There are days when arms in transit could get lost when they get to certain parts. So for the issue of small arms, it has been a major headache for this country. And I think we need to be a little bit strategic in dealing with it, because all what we've been doing over the years have not helped us. And these days, when you look at the sophistication of the weapons people are using for robbery, it's raising a bit of concern.
All produced here in Ghana?
That's it. Not just in Ghana, but they bring them from elsewhere. And we have no effective ways of controlling and checking them. And even seizure, things get seized and they vanish in this country. And we don't know those holding these arms and for what purpose. And I'm just saying that combining that one with an election year, which is going to be very hot, we are having contract killings we don't want to call contract killings. We would need to be a little bit circumspect, otherwise it could get out of hand.
Okay. We have a small arms commission. I don't know the last time I heard from them. We need updates regularly on these things. We know that manufacturing arms in Ghana is totally banned, but we find them because of the profit that these people make on it. It's about time that we get real with the issues and tackle it head on.
Well, I think so, and I completely agree with the points that you've made. And we are in a very vulnerable situation in Ghana here. We are surrounded by either post-conflict countries that have not fully disarmed. You have Ivory Coast, you have Sierra Leone, you have Liberia, you have Burkina Faso and the Sahel bubbling. So the whole sub-region is awash with arms. Even if we discount what is produced in the country, what is just circulating around alone is enough
over 2 million.
Exactly, to cause a lot of havoc. And we downplay this Galamsey and the efforts that Galamseyers would take to protect their concessions and etc. We've had 1 or 2 shootings, etc. But if you look at what happened in Sierra Leone with the diamond mining and the miners arming themselves and etc., we are in a very precarious situation, and I think it requires, again, not the knee-jerk reaction, but do we have a strategy? I'm not a security analyst, so I wouldn't know. But I would say that, first of all, in terms of the locally manufactured one, the more we try to ban it, the more we push it underground. Is it time for us to look at a form or a system of registration that enables us, to control it better? And that's a question I'm throwing up. I mean, can we license these local manufacturers, and in that process be able to regulate what they do? They have the ways in which then we can trace which weapon was found where and etc. Are we able to tighten our borders in such a way that we regulate, or we are able to address this whole thing about arms coming in? And that will require very close collaboration with our neighboring countries, Our borders are very porous. That goes without saying. What do we need to do? But in country, how do we incentivize that people are willing to register their weapons? That the police or the security services are able to follow up and trace on this. And then we talked about the crime scene management. Even where, the bullets are there and etc. Well, as soon as people rush in, they tamper with it. Some may take the spent bullets as souvenirs, whatever. How do you trace all this? So I think it requires a long-term, the police ballistic units. I don't know how far they've gone with it and etc. So we are in a very critical situation. We need to look at long-term solutions to this rather than the knee-jerk is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll move to our next issue, another issue that has been this is affecting the whole world, and that's the COVID-19 or coronavirus. And we understand that apart from Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, Senegal, yesterday recorded its first case of coronavirus. And there are concerns that it's getting closer. But
it's getting closer where?
To Ghana. But we are just praying that it doesn't happen because of how, again, our borders are porous and we are surrounded by all these neighboring countries and all that. So the Director General was here yesterday and he made some comments. I'll read from our website shortly. It says, most Ghanaian students in Wuhan don't want to be evacuated. That's the Ghana Health Service boss, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, speaking. And the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, says government's decision not to evacuate Ghanaians in China over the outbreak of coronavirus in that city was partly due to the disinterest of majority of the students there to return home. According to him, the government, through intelligence and surveys, gathered that most of the students in Wuhan, China, where the outbreak started, did not want to be evacuated. So there's a quote from him. He says, a significant number didn't want to come home. We did a survey. Those who wanted to come home were few, he told Bernard Avila on The Point of View on Monday. We are talking about 162 students in Wuhan, and the ambassador to China was in touch with them every other day. We had information about the situation they were in and the number of those who really wanted to come back home. We also assessed whether the systems and protection that they were getting there in China was adequate. If it was adequate, we would have brought them, Dr. Abuaji noted. So there has been divergent views on the evacuation of Ghanaian students living in Wuhan. The government announced in February that it was not ready to evacuate the students, despite calls by some of the students and their parents that they needed to return to Ghana due to the risk. So for me, this sounds a bit surprising, considering the buzz that I had on my phone when this outbreak was escalating in Wuhan. So every morning you wake up and a different student has sent you a message, we need evacuation. I didn't know them. I don't know how they got my number. But you wake up every morning and there are messages pointing to the fact that they wanted to return home. So this is a bit surprising to hear that majority of the students didn't want evacuation to return home, considering how Wuhan has been the epicenter, even though the cases are reducing and not having the spikes as it used to be. I mean, does this come to you as a surprise?
Yeah, I was surprised because the number was about 100 and something.
Yes.
Let's even say 150 students. And he said majority, but then he was silent on the number. We are on national television, and this has been an NDC NPP issue, where one party say bring them home, the other party say we are not bringing them home. Then we hear they don't want to come. The good thing is that we haven't heard that any of them has been infected with the virus so far, so they can afford to be there. What is also important is that we have no shut down flights from China, which means that the possibility of somebody coming with the virus is high. Then I read from your portal that so far the total number of cases tested are negative.
Yeah, 33.
We need to be alert. Since it has become a global virus, we need to be alert and put in the measures that when it happens, what do we do? Education of the public should be starting right now, the health personnel and the health facilities. And I think we'll be fine, but we don't want coronavirus here in the first place. But should it happen, are we ready and are we prepared to deal with it? That is the question we need to be answering.
All right. Ibrahim-Tanko.
Yes, I was quite intrigued when I read that the decision was based partly or primarily on the willingness or unwillingness of the students to come. I don't think you make such decisions on the basis of willingness or unwillingness. I think you make those decisions on the basis of an assessment of the facts, the issues to take into consideration. Where they are in Wuhan, are they safe? The measures in place to ensure that they don't contract, that, if it does happen, to take care of them and etc. So what are the conditions over there? And then if we want to bring them, do we have, because I understand when you bring them, you have to quarantine them for some time before they can, do we have the facilities to quarantine that number? Do we have the reasons to fly them safely from Wuhan to Ghana? Those are the kind of considerations that I want to say, okay, the Ghana Health Service has considered A, B, C, D, E, F, that perhaps we do not have enough facilities to quarantine 100 and whatever students, so they are better off in Wuhan where maybe the Chinese have better facilities, or we think that apart from the fact that they may be exposed to danger in Wuhan because of the total lockdown, there are mental implications, there are psychological implications and etc. And on the basis of that, you are making that judgment to bring them home and quarantine them here. I think the Americans did that. Some of their citizens were locked up on a cruise ship. Yeah. Most of them didn't have it. But because of the lockdown on the cruise ship and all the rumors flying, the Americans decided to do what? To fly their citizens and quarantine them in the U.S. rather than over there.
And interestingly, we understand 4 people have died in the United States out of that. So would it have been better to keep them on the Diamond Princess cruise ship? Yeah. Or it was better bringing them home to be tested positive and dying? And the incubation period, 14 days, you are unable to see who has it. You have to contact trace everybody.
Exactly.
So wouldn't it have been better to keep them?
So that is what I'm saying, that on the basis, the Americans made a judgment. I'm sure there was a bit of politics in it. But they made a judgment that on the cruise ship, there were all these rumors that, even the rate of infection was spreading faster on the cruise ship than even, in the outside distance. So it was better to bring them out. So whether, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with the Ghana Health Services decision.
Okay, so
but I want to hear that the Director General made the decision because of this technical assessments, and not because majority said they want to come or they didn't want to come.
Okay, so a Deputy Health Minister, Alexander Aban, also stated that the financial implications in having to bring these people back, we have to consider that as well. Now, Ghana had set aside 2.5 million cedis to actually deal with the issue. WHO says that is not enough. It's inadequate to treat the issue. So, to an extent, will you agree that they keep them since China can handle the issues better?
So I think I will go with what the Uganda Minister of Health said. Our madam said that nobody should go to China and the students should stay there. They shouldn't come home. I think we should be frank to speak about some of these issues because these are sensitive issues. Do you even have the facilities to quarantine them? The financial implications, the psychological implications. I think that's where we should go. But the PR being done here that majority of the students don't want to come. I have a nephew there who is crying almost every day. We want to come home. Yeah. And you can't say some of those things on air. But even if we go with their position, then it's important that we intensify surveillance so that we'll be able to monitor to see which of our citizens is at risk and what do we do. Then we'll be a bit more responsible in dealing with the issues.
Okay.
But why should China bear the cost of our students?
No, they can deal with it better.
Yes, so I agree with that. But if we say, okay, the cost of bringing them, at the end of the day, the state has a responsibility to its citizens.
The state has actually given each student $500, which they have received.
Okay. Yes, but you made a point that the deputy minister said even the cost of, and I'm saying that shouldn't come in, because at the end of the day, the state has a responsibility to its citizens.
We should find the money. They place money in.
But if it is that on these technical issues, there are enough facilities in China to manage them. They have given them money. I heard they were flying Kinki and Shito and etc. to put them. Well, then that's fine, But the state cannot abdicate its responsibility and say, well, we don't have money, so the Chinese should handle it. That for me is not. It's a non-starter.
Okay. Finally, before we move to our final topic now, the issue of the centers that have been set aside to treat the coronavirus here in Ghana. Tema General Hospital, Ridge Hospital. These two places are areas where you have so many people going on a daily basis. Would it have been better to get a totally different area to treat this particular disease?
Whose idea was that? To put up Tema General Hospital and Ridge Hospital?
Yes, I actually went to the I went to coronavirus. I went to tour the Ridge place. I think about a month ago. They've actually set up. It's a building that has been set apart to actually treat it. But definitely, when you are sending these patients there, you have to go through.
Ridge Hospital is in the center of the city. This is Accra, where we live. And all the big guys, the VVIPs and the VIPs are here. Papa J's house is just about 100 meters away or 50 meters away from Ridge. When you get to Tema General Hospital, one day took undercover cameras and found out how many people die on daily basis, even without coronavirus. I think we are creating a problem for ourselves.
I also understand the New Ghana East Hospital and the police hospital have also been set.
Police hospital?
Yes.
That is where our wives and mothers give birth. Please, find a hospital somewhere far away. The Chinese don't build those things. You see, when we refuse to act on intelligence, you see, most of these countries act on intelligence, and most of the decisions they take are intelligence-based. When it comes to national issues, it's not about politics. It's about intelligence-based. And therefore, they must allow the intelligence guys to be taking some of these decisions because it's a national security issue, and it will create problem. When you have most of your active players dying through coronavirus, then it's an aggressive and it's an attack on your national security. And those are the issues we should be looking at. Where we even set as a center, who is driving it? Is it the politicians or the security people? There's no much we can see on it, but I think that seriously, we need to look at it as a national security issue to be able to take serious issues to address it. But not Ridge Hospital, not police hospital, please.
Oh, you should see the Ridge one. It's being isolated.
No, please, we should take it a little bit far. Papa J is close there, and Ridge Hospital is a main road. We are to Flagstaff House is just about 50 meters. We don't want anything to be flying in the air close to Flagstaff House, please. Okay,
all right. So let's move to so I said call it business, something more business-like now. Not business actually, but these are locked up funds of.
CBG.
Yes, of our brothers, our sisters, our family members. Over 360,000 of them have their monies locked up. Now, I'll read what the receiver has been saying. We understand 13,000 people have been actually paid fully. So this is also on citinewsroom.com. Locked up funds, more than 13,000 microfinance and SNL customers paid, that's according to the CBG. The Consolidated Bank Ghana says the processes to pay customers of defunct microfinance companies, savings and loans companies and finance houses have been smooth. According to the bank, as for Friday, February 28, 2020, over 13,000 customers had been paid fully. The bank added that the number of customers paid includes 490 companies, 581 social organizations, 174 financial institutions, and 48 financial security institutions. The individual customers paid are 12,382. The latest figures come on the back of a promise made by the receiver of the collapsed microfinance company, savings and loans and finance houses that all affected depositors will receive their lock-up funds or investments by end of March this year. President Akufo-Addo, during the State of the Nation address delivered last week, revealed that an amount of 5 billion cedis has been earmarked to reimburse all customers of the defunct companies from Monday, February 24, which was last week. So I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Now, this should be some exciting news, good news. At least we've seen some improvement from what customers were actually saying up to this period where the president made the announcement and subsequent payment.
Yeah. Yes, I agree that it's good news. Some people have gotten their monies. Some have gotten part of their monies. And others have at least the promise of getting the payment. So I think that is really good news. What I would say is that the tensions, the challenges people face right from the time that the banks were closed, etc., to now, some of those challenges could have been avoided. Because we do have people who were living in suspense, some who had put all their savings into these microfinance institutions. And you look at the time these institutions were shut down to this week when they are being paid. And in the interim, the lack of information, the lack of access to the monies, and etc. And so that process could have been managed much better, in my opinion. I think the second is, again, I keep on talking about going back to the systemic issues. Just a few years ago, we were talking about, is it DKM?
Yeah.
In Brongahafo, parts of the Godeslav, etc. We finished with that, and then shortly we came up to this. So that whole thing about how these institutions are registered and regulated, if we don't deal with those ones.
I think that was a cleansing that was done. That's why
exactly,
we have...
Exactly. So which is why I'm saying that we need to take a more long-term view about this and look at where the challenges were, what were the factors that led to this, and how we can sustainably address them. So a few years down the line, we're not faced with those kind of situations again.
Okay.
I agree with everything he said, except to say that we prayed people get their money on time. Yeah. And these are their hard-earned money. So apart from those who went in for high investment, people have their personal money to lock up. We definitely giving the money. So once they are being paid, we pray that the process continue, that people will get their money and the tension will be over. So.
Okay, so the issue of they being, not for come now, I believe. Okay, so let me put it this way. So until the president made this announcement during the SUNA, customers were basically left in the dark. They had been promised...
So that's everything we do in this country. Nobody speaks to anybody. Nobody is professional about anything. And nobody does things properly. So sometimes you ask, did we go to school? Or did we learn some of these things? You are taking over people's money. When you took over the banks and consolidated, I trained all the banks in this country, including the central bank, when it comes to fraud, money laundering, security and background checks. Most of the banks that were consolidated were people are trained on a yearly basis. When we consolidated these banks, we classified or categorized the type of customers we have in there. And therefore, straight away, we should create a center how people should interface with some of these people. That is where the agitations are coming from. Now, you go down and speak to people, and they are even saying that 13,000. Recently, we heard the news that the receiver was able to only retrieve about 16 point something from the total. You get it, so contradictory. And once you have so many contradictions, people then conclude that you are covering up. And we are saying that the process has begun for people should be paid. Let's hope and pray that you go to the ground and speak to people, and it is true that their monies are actually being given to them. When you look at the men's gold issue, benchmark that one, it is almost the same thing. And sometimes, because of the politics nature of some of these things, it creates a little bit of a problem when it's not individuals or independent people managing the affairs that people can go and speak to them. Do we need the president to speak on every issue before the right thing is done? The president just spoke about the police. Yeah, they went killing people and shooting more live bullets. It means that we need individuals to take systems seriously and to take decisions that benefit the customers. And in this case, the customers have not been fairly treated.
But don't you also think that you want systems to be put in place? That is why they actually had to clean up the whole financial sector and to yield
that is one leg, but you are dealing with customers who interface with who now become the receiver. So the receiver now become their banker, and they have obligation and they have a duty of care between the two parties. So from government's point or from the regulator's point, you clean up the system. But then what happened next? That is where the customers are crying foul.
And I think the issue of financial literacy is one that we also need to take up seriously in this country. That's at the end of the day, without meaning to sound, how should I put it? But it is our money now that is being used to bail out this and make these payments. And I think a little bit of education could actually enable people to make better investment decisions. That sometimes people rush into schemes that are too good to be true. So you make a bad investment decision, and at the end of the day, you and I would have to cough up the money to rescue you from that. So I'm not saying that it's not good to pay them. The cleanup was absolutely necessary. We can quibble with some of the processes and timelines and etc. But I think it was something that needed to be done, and the government should be commended for doing it. But we've talked about the communication. We have pensioners who just took their pensions and went and deposited them right into this thing. Right. And then when these banks and institutions were closed down, people found it very difficult to survive, and we're not getting information. So that is one part of it. But I think the other part, they say, as you drive away the hawk, you also ensure that the chicken or the hen doesn't expose itself to danger. So let's also see how we can intensify financial literacy education for citizens.
That's right.
That we're able to, but also ensure that if I'm living in a village somewhere in rural Ghana, I don't have to come to Accra or to the big city to assess that there are, enough mechanisms that I can save my money.
Okay, so let me read some messages that have come through. PM Abdul Majid says, our security system in the country is collapsing, and it's very bad. The safety and security of the state largely depends on good policing. With my 12-year experience working abroad, I saw policing at its best. And he says he wishes he could be one of the panelists today. When you come, let's know. We may bring you on board to discuss some of these issues. Farouk Tema says the lawlessness happening in Sogakope is unfortunate and must not be entertained. But we must also urge our police service to be swift in taking action when crime is reported to them. That's how we'll end the news review segment for today. I was joined by Richard Kumadoe, who is a fraud and security analyst, and Ibrahim-Tanko Amidu, who is executive director of Star Ghana Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us and to actually share your opinions about the issues that have been trending.
We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends. This is Breakfast Daily on Citi TV.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Join us for breakfast daily, only on Citi TV.